We are live. Good evening, beautiful beings.
Hello, beautiful family.
Thank you so much for joining us on this wonderful Friday evening. Tonight's topic that we have chosen is issues, and the wonderful nature of consciousness expresses itself in a divine way through numbers, through letters, through words, and if we, which I'm sure you're aware, phonetically look at the word issue, is you. And these issues have always been you. We tend to, as personas, egos, or persons, always look outside of ourselves to resolve issues by thinking when something changes, I will be okay. Now, these issues come in predominantly three different subsections. They are mental, they are physical, and they are emotional. And we have this wonderful pain body, which we have the ability to feel whenever these things arise. So just for one example, with the physical aspect of ourself, we have this physical pain body that brings up issues. And when this pain arises, we have to turn to knowledge, to information via seeking to find out the remedy. And 99% of the time, we have been brought up in a society eating processed foods, and these processed foods lead us to sickness and disease. So if we're having any physical ailments, one of the first places we need to look into is ourselves and how we consume food, because this is our well-being and our health within physicality. So this is the subject for today. We do have a couple of questions from last time.
Can I just touch on the physical aspect that you just mentioned, Josh?
Please.
Because when it comes to health and disease, discomfort of the physical, this really takes us away from the present moment. And this is what we're trying to release, all of this discomfort, because this is one of the first key aspects of evolution, and this is why we touch on the subject quite heavily when beings start on their journey, because it is one of the keys, isn't it, to open that first door.
I think consciousness or awareness of certain elements on your journey brings the doorway to new awareness. And first of all, most of us believe we are the physical body before we've ever had a chance to experience the spirit itself or the self. And number one in the foundation of what we share is get yourself to an inner alignment with your physical health through understanding yourself through your own journey, which foods are meant for the human body.
Mm.
And via the teachings we've shared over the last few years and on our website, we have this idea of a transformational diet system where slow and steadily you become aware of certain foods, you start reducing them from your consumption, and each time you do this, you kind of have a level up within yourself.
Mm.
You become a little more free, you become a little bit more accessible to heightened states within your physical nature, and then you work your way to this to the most freeing, the most easily assimilated, and the diet of least resistance would be a raw or a fruit-based diet. But along the way, during our wonderful time sharing with you all, we have come across many people that lead to deficiencies. So it's led us to adjust and adapt what we share, because the food that we are consuming predominantly is of Western society, that's produced in a mass way. And the soil that's mass produced is deficient, which then leads to deficiencies within the food we consume. So there are ways to supplement this, or once you've experienced what it's like to be on a fruit-based diet, you then know this ultimate way to heal yourself and others, along with fasting, for example, and then sit where you feel is best. And, without having too much mental emphasis on a need to be a certain way, we do truly recommend that your baseline is a whole food diet, preferably a whole food plant-based diet.
Without all the chemicals and the words that you can't read on the ingredients list, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
Because this is where the true clarity comes from. It cleans the vessel, it cleans all of the brain fog that's there when you have all of the chemicals, and you feel a lot lighter. You can see clearly, and it's just an amazing journey to be on. But feel the teaching that comes from it, because whereas when we have this suffering that we feel, we're at discomfort or disease, turn that around and look at it as in a positive light, and know that it's teaching you something. It's there for a reason for you, and know that this is the greatest teaching, because if you weren't in this position, then you wouldn't seek and follow that journey of enlightenment.
Yeah, I think some of the teachings within the Bible and some in the Buddhist is the world is of suffering. And this is the first understanding that we must come to. This experience that we're having now has different levels and elements of suffering. And they have different levels and elements to consciousness traps, which is essentially what we'll be touching through this conversation, as we do in most of these live shows. Just as you believe you become more aware, or you have found certain aspects of truth, you kind of focus in on these perceptions and you create a new persona or a new identity, which then opens you up to new levels of suffering inside.
And when the suffering comes out, beings often feel the victim, or in fear or anxiety about what's going to happen to them. But if we really use this as our greatest teaching, then we can overcome these obstacles with practices that we put in place for our journey.
It just leaves you to this inner ability to contemplate within yourself, to reconcile these ideas that create suffering. And that which I just said is the most important thing that you can ever come to terms with. Your perception, if causing suffering, you must contemplate to reconcile the ideas. This comes from simplicity, like you begin to see the world, the matrix, the government, the food systems, these new school systems, everything that's going on inside the world, believe you know better, and then have this desire or this innate need to change that which is. And that idea or that desire to change it leads to suffering, because within you're looking out as if this is wrong. Then you begin to be open to a higher perception if you continue to seek. And that will lead you to this great recognition that everything that's in the external is a part of the consciousness, which is perfect and needed for the individual levels of awareness within it. So those that shall be led will be led, and then they will be boxed within their awareness to certain levels of suffering that is compartmentalized across the plane or across the world. And what we like to share or point to within yourself is to not give too much attention to any particular subject, to seek, to explore, experience, know, grow in your wisdom, and then move on. And I've seen so many people, especially in the earlier days, who came to join our family. There was suffering, there was focus on the world and all of the issues that were presented. Now, no matter how we perceive it, if it's negative, things may not happen. And I'm sure most of you here who have touched or been, focused on the negativity that was presented to most people during the past 3 years, that nothing bad came of it to you. But it was the idea that you had that created the suffering within yourself.
And you also bring that energy towards you because of the reciprocation that, if you're in fear of that, it will raise an opportunity to give you a teaching to overcome this. So, being aware of that on top of all of this as well is also, hugely beneficial, because you can see where these teachings come from. If you have a fear of certain things happening, they will be brought to you to see how you're going to react to that, and then you can overcome those things by tackling them face on.
Yeah, we're as persons full of illusions. In any great teaching across history, it always says that man is trapped, energy is trapped, chakras are trapped by illusion. But what is this illusion? And it's as simple as recognizing your fear, or a fear within you, that you must face, you must reconcile, you must identify, you must contemplate, and you must clear it. Otherwise, it just sits deep within you and arises in the future. The fear of public speaking is quite often familiar with most people, because during early days in school, you have to stand up. You're made to produce or present something to the whole class. And we have these fears and doubts and expectations of what other people may think or feel about us. But this is all just a form of thought, a thought form, or a demon. This must be recognized. You must come to terms with this to move beyond your own inner illusion. And truly, there is no other journey, than this for yourself, to take away any limitations or barriers that have been created through your experience identifying with your persona or your person.
It's nice to be at free flow in most of the time, because it's that path of least resistance again, that you're not causing any stress or acidic environments within the body, because Josh touched on there's 3 levels of this, this
Pain
way
body.
of being, because the physical aspect, is what we feel. But, there's a lot going on inside, that when we take our stresses inside and we hold on to that, whether it be like expectations or judgments, we can cause a lot of internal instability. And no matter how good or how freeing your diet is, you'll never be able to change that, because you're creating that acidic environment within the being. So, our thoughts, our emotions, our energy, we need to free all of that, as well as, the body.
And ignorance to those ideas, and just walking around, like with a childlike perception on life, can extend your life far superior to those who suffer on a plant-based diet. But obviously tackling both of these will bring the most level of longevity in your experience than you could ever wish for. So we truly suggest that recognizing these pain body experiences that come up and arise within your physical nature, coming to a level of understanding with food, which may take time, energy, and research. But if you have a desire for the truth, you shall seek and you will find. But the finding only comes in with the experimentation that you have with yourself. So truth of the application is what we've shared from the beginning. You will never know truth unless you apply certain theories or certain beliefs to then bring this experience into truth and wisdom for yourself. Otherwise, you have questions that never become answered, and you continue this quest for knowledge without never quenching it.
It just becomes a copied behavior or a new program that you're learning from someone else or somewhere else. So those programs that have been inserted from either family, friends, or a learnt behavior just becomes a new behavior on top of what you've learned before. So it's breaking that mold, that box, and being true to what you want to experience at that time.
Yeah. And I had a conversation today, and I've always had this innate ability to see the truth that's presented across the board and then find a real interpretation of it. And just for an example, I was having a chat about bodybuilding or muscle growth with someone that was doing intermittent fasting. And he's a wonderful man, incredible friend. And so many studies presented to him, and he's lost because he's not finding out within himself the answers that he was looking for through this experimentation. So it says, when you have limited time with fasting, testosterone levels rise. And okay, the testosterone levels are rising, but what is the causation of it and the downregulation of this? So this must be sought rather than just the answers within the experiments. If you understand the body, or even if you go and do some, deeper research within it, you'll find when the body's in a catabolic state, which is in a state of losing muscle, it actually increases the levels of testosterone to try to stop muscle wastage. So you're having testosterone higher, which is perceived to be a good thing for muscle growth. But the only factor of this is because the muscles are starting to degrade and be broken down as a fuel, and testosterone is elevated within the body to stop the muscle breaking down so fast. And another aspect of it is when there's high levels of cortisol within the body, this is also catabolic, which is the state when the body uses muscle or breaks down muscle as energy and stores fat. And when the body has extreme cortisol, it also puts or elevates testosterone within the body to then stop this tissue breaking down. So to me, observing it from a distance, having this knowledge available, you can see that intermittent fasting is great for longevity, but I would never recommend it for an experience of someone trying to build muscle, because the elevated levels of testosterone is due to the body being broken down. And I feel through my own experience and observation of experimentation myself and others, that continually regular feeding the body of smaller meals and one or two larger meals throughout the day will ultimately bring a higher metabolism, a more anabolic state, that the body can be in a greater position to maintain and grow more muscle tissue.
Again, it does depend on your ultimate experience at that time. So if you're experiencing, you want to experience muscle building, it's a completely different path to cleansing the vessel or healing. So when we say there's a healing protocol and a muscle building protocol, this is the experience that you're having at the moment. So each and every one of us is having a different level of experience. So we need to be in less judgment of others and their path, because it's very easy to say, oh, they should be eating, all raw foods or fruit-based. But, if you're not on the healing journey and you would like to build more muscle, then, it's not an easy way to do that. It's a very difficult, challenging way to build muscle. So there are different ways to experience your journey.
Just don't limit yourself to an idea because you and others have an expectation of what somebody should be like in an elevated journey or an experience of spiritual development, because that is also a trap. That is also surrendering your will to experience to the ideologies of others and your persona, because this is life, and within life you can experience it however you choose to. And if you don't, more thoughts will arise, more friction within yourself. And at the end of it all, you will recognize that this has only ever been about experience. This leads us to the perception again. Because within the world, we've always heard that you create your own reality and your thoughts create your own reality. And instantly we look outside of the world to change. But is this the case? Do I change my external or the holistic external from my thoughts? Now, I'm not saying that manifestation doesn't happen through a great focus and shift in your energy with this innate ability to hold in the imagination to bring synchronicities and things to you. What I'm saying is you have the ability to create, and that creation comes on the way you perceive the world. So do you look at things in a positive light and that bring you wonderful, happy hormones, joy, etc.? Or do you look at them in a negative way? Do you have a relationship with your partner And certain things they do create you to have this negative idea about them, thus creating negative energy within you and not enjoying your experience. You are the master of this. You can and should be the master of your perception. And wherever it needs reconciling, you should put time and energy into clearing this negative way the mind is perceiving into this positive outlook.
Because the issue that lies within you is not their issue. So you're bringing it upon yourself to feel suffering from that very thought that you have about them, or that expectation that you have about them. So holding on to resentment, anger, frustration, jealousy, all of these are covered in the sins that we speak of when it comes to virtue and sinful living, because it's having a huge impact on your stability and where you are. And that inner environment that we were talking about earlier was, that stress, the stress hormones that are created from those thoughts that are happening. It's like a dialogue that's constantly running. And, you're making judgments or expectations all the time. And that's what's causing the suffering inside, is that someone else should be doing something about it. In actual fact, it's you. And bringing peace to that environment is an absolute bonus for anyone.
You're doing this to yourself.
Mm.
You're creating your negative days. You're creating your positive days. But if you have the ability to step back and wonder, why am I creating positivity unconsciously? Is because the ego is getting self-gratification. It's something that's being rewarded because the identity of this person has this function that this is a positive, or the negative aspects of it is this is a negative. Become present, become aware, become in control. Recognize that you create your reality, and it's through the perception that you have. Joy can be found in every single moment. But do you give enough time and energy to master this within yourself? Or do you give it to something else? Do you give it to the external, observing others, expecting things to change for you within the world? Do you expect your partner to change because you don't like something about her? Or could you sit there and see from a different angle within inside yourself, shift your perception, respect her for being her, and recognize the true law? What will be, will be. Everyone has a will. And as long as we lose desire to change things, we eliminate suffering from our perception. We can actually be free and enjoy every interaction with the real eyes that give us the inner stability that we're all looking for.
See through the eyes of love. And it's, it can be down to a protection mechanism that, the ego takes over when you feel threatened or not in a comfortable place. It can be like putting up barriers and walls where you've had trauma before. And this is where you can really look within and see where this is happening. And that protection doesn't need to happen with the ones that, we love and care for, because that's actually pushing them away. So dealing with these emotions or feelings or fears when they come up is utmost importance, really, because if you're not tackling these, then you're giving in to that egoic tendency to hold on to that and create that instability within you. And once they're spoken of and the truth is out there, then you can, talk to your partner or your children or whoever your loved ones are and really work through this, because it's really important to tackle these things. And when they're left unresolved, this is when we get that suffering and anxiety.
Yeah, and resolved. You see the word solved in it, and the word solution as soul. And we have recognition, and cognition comes from the mind. So to be able to shift the mind, you must become aware and recognize these things. So it's really truly down to you and your awareness of them. Without the sight, you will truly never see. So question yourself. Anytime these things arise, try to sit and see where the root of this idea is coming from. Because when you have the ability to recognize it, you have the ability to reconcile it and bring yourself to peace through only contemplation. And as Michelle and I have shared for many years, meditation is a state. It is not a practice. Meditation is a state of balance, free from illusion. If you sit and practice meditation 1 to 2 hours a day, 20 minutes, 30 minutes a day, and you're sitting there finding a bit of peace within yourself, you get up, you go in traffic, you get stressed, you have arguments, you find fault in others rather than yourself. It's not serving you. I would say serving yourself, you would find time much better than living life in a consistent contemplation till you've cleared this negativity, till you've cleared any of these levels of suffering that arise within you. And that's the purpose of them. This is the purpose of your persona.
I think beings often ask us our meditation practices, and honestly, I really enjoy exercise. So because I enjoy it and I feel like, at ease there and at peace there, I use that time to really contemplate on things rather than, sit in a meditative state and, being...
Or trying to meditate.
It's like you're kind of forcing yourself into that position. So you can use any part of the day to be in contemplation or meditation or at peace, but it's thought of as you have to sit in a certain area and be in a certain pose to be in a meditative state. And I feel that in itself puts you into a box from the beginning.
Yeah,
so,
chasing Kundalini activation, chasing this sacred sex, chasing all of these things within yourself, and none of them are bringing you to your perception and how you see the world and how you see others.
And also, like, listening to guided meditations, someone else is doing it from their perspective of what they would choose to put into their meditation. So, sometimes that's quite off-putting to the mind again, because the mind's listening to someone else's perception of meditation. So it can take you off on a whole different journey and put you into another spiritual box that's quite difficult to get out of again, because we mentioned before on our other Q&As that it's one of those things that once you become spiritual, you jump from the Western society box to another box, and it's just the same thing but in a different way. It's just taught in a different way.
You're unconscious in the Western box. You jump to believe you're conscious in the Eastern box and looking at the Western box in disgust of it. And that's essentially what happens to most people, but it is a part of your journey. And I like to bring the things simple to mysticism or what's been left there. And we've all heard that the world is a mirror of yourself, or the way you see the world. But this is what we're talking about now. It's just your perception. So however you're seeing things and however you interpret them, good, bad, you are experiencing this within. So our pointing to you on this beautiful Friday is take a look inside yourself, bring some remedy, some resolution, really sit down when these things arise and try to find exactly where the root is. Of course, it's deep rooted in the identity or the persona, but really identify it and bring resolution.
And when they say, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, it's like who is deciding whether it's good or bad, or whether you like it or you don't. So the decider has the power. So, who's in control of your thoughts? Is it, the ego flipping you from side to side, I like this, but I don't like this? Or are you at peace with everything and there is no decide, there is no choice? It just is what it is. And once we take that label away, everything becomes a lot easier to deal with. You're free from the chains of the labels all the time.
Yeah, and if you are experiencing like a 9 to 5, you've elevated to a certain perception, and you really strongly don't want to be there, You have desires to be left. Start to move away to a beautiful country where you can grow your own food. You know, those thought processes are never really going to take you there. They're not going to bring the energy to you or pull the experience within. So that whole level of mastery on these different dimensions is what's going to truly bring it to you and understand that you must emote and feel as if you've already received it. These teachings were left in the Bible and other sacred books. Keep in your imagination, as we all were created in the imagination of God, and we hold our own innate imagination also. Then do not desire the gift. Feel as if you have received that gift and continue to give thanks and gratitude. Emanate grace from your being. Keep that idea in your mind. Thus, experiences will continue to synchronize with this vibration that you are holding, and step by step, maybe in a short period of time or over a longer period of time, this will come to fruit for you.
When Josh just said about the gift, then it's knowing that, you know, the present moment is our true gift, and that is all we have. You know, there's so many ideas about the past.
Suffer.
You know, suffering from depression because we're reliving what happened in the past, and then we're anxious about the future. You know, we don't want to forget that present moment because that's all we have, and that's the beauty of it, and that's why it's called the present, the gift, the true gift of what we should be experiencing. In actual fact, we're reliving lots of suffering that's happening all the time with this running commentary that's a step ahead always.
Is stealing your moment, the ego, your false identity. It is stealing the moment and relaying it to you via a dialogue that you become aware of, fixated on, and focused. That gets all your attention and takes all of your energy. And presence, as Misha was saying, I'm sure you've heard it before, but those that are new, is pre-sense. It means before the senses. Past has gone past. Leave it where it was. The future is yet to be. It will actually never be. It will be experienced in a moment of presence, if you are lucky enough to find that space. Otherwise, it'll be relayed to you with a warped perception from your mind. But we have presence and we have innocence. The beauty of innocence is being in no sense. Phonetics are the true way language was always expressed. And presence is pre-sense, so before the senses. So to have no sense is to be innocent. And to be before the senses, you will find your presence. It will never, ever not be there. It is actually always there before the mind arises, or before the idea, or before the thought. As I'm sure you have been in a good mood and possibly heard something negative that led to a thought process, and then you are no longer okay.
And then when we focus on the now, we've actually won. So the reverse of now
is one. That's not quite a one. But they're all correlated or co-related. Now, one and one. And why have we won? When we win, when we are one. And this leads us to the beautiful etymology of atonement, which is also at one ment. Ment is mente, Latin for mind. So we are at one mind. Instead of this dualistic mind, that is ego, false persona identification, and self, identifying as this, we have removed the false identity and live in a true space within ourselves that is absolutely free from judgment. And this judgment we experience is the judge, not Judge Judy, judgment. Again, we have the ment word. Mente is mind, judging the mind. But what is this? This is when your mind, or a mind within yourself, which could be interpreted as a form of intelligence, as your false identity, your ego, is continually relaying reality via a dialogue that you have become aware of and give your attention to, taking away your presence, taking away your joy, and essentially creating a false construct on what is. Have any of you experienced the truth of what truly is and left what isn't alone? And can I ask you to leave your memory alone right now and tell me who you are? Tell me what you are. Tell me where you are. And tell me when you are. Sit with yourself simply and just ask yourself this question without memory. You are here, you are now, you are this, and this is. The mind wants something to fathom. It wants an idea, it wants a construct, it wants difficult ideologies to magnify what truly is into something, into a conspiracy. And I feel like this is why the conspiracies are loved so much by those that have searched for truth and found conspiracy. It is very exciting to the mind.
Also, the idea and the imagination runs away with a lot of conspiracies out there because, you know, there's so much to be made up from one small aspect. And then, you know, it's kind of like Chinese whispers in a way.
Yeah.
And then it's ran away with.
Don't be racist.
Yeah. Because it's just followed blindly, and that's when the trouble happens. For
Those
the
that
being.
shall be led shall be led. Say these things to yourself. Have you taken what is said and spread amongst hearsay as a truth?
Mm.
Or have you searched, experienced, and felt for yourself?
Mm.
This is the power within the words, you know. We see the words, and I'm going to write them down for those that are new. Somebody may have stumbled across this today that is new. But we have the word belief and to know. Okay. And right in the word belief, just as in the word aliens, alien is a lie. Beliefs are lies. It's a lie within matter. F is number 6 in the alphabet, which represents matter. That's why fact is spelled F-A-C-T. It's an act of matter and is stored as a fact. But we have a belief. This is not true. It will never be true. Otherwise, it would be called the truth. To not believe. No. And in the word no, you will see the word now. Can you know more than what is now? K is the 11th letter in the alphabet. We have 11. These are twin pillars of Freemasonry. You have the word, I might look at it. You have the word 11 as L even. L is a root Sanskrit word for God. To even out your temples brings balance and recognition of God. So balance in the moment. This is all you need to know. How to balance now within inside yourself. And there you will find happiness. And happiness will be with you forevermore if you continue to be present in the now.
So it's very simple.
This is not anything other than glorifying what is in a way that it excites certain minds. And I think sometimes it's beneficial to share it, to bring a little bit more depth into the nature of consciousness, which is quite exciting sometimes.
I just wanted to, before we move on to some more of the questions, happy harvest full moon, everyone. And I know some of you beautiful beings have been on some fasting days with us over the equinox. And I'm just interested to know, because last night I was up between the hours of 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. and then I couldn't get back to sleep. So around the full moons, I always find that my sleep is slightly more interrupted. And I wanted to know if any of you have experienced some sleeping difficulties over the last day or two.
Well, if you recognise synchronicities with full moons
because
and your sleep.
Since my fasting journeys began a few years back, I really noticed this, or took note of it. Maybe it happened before, but sometimes you don't necessarily log it as part of your journey. But so I'd be interested to know. But the harvest moon is today for us, so take some pictures of your moons for us.
Yeah. I hope you have a beautiful moon. I hope it's not
Yes.
too cold in certain areas, as I'm sure most of you are aware that the moon gives off cold light. It can be 8 degrees cooler in full moon light than in the shade. If you do not believe me, please go and test it, and then you'll know. I wanted to answer a question that we had remaining from last week, and I think it's related to issues as well. Dina Rio, the hard thing that I have a problem accepting is factory farming and the suffering of slaughtered animals. I'm sure most of us have come to this at some point on our journey and have a strong desire for it to stop. But remember, the power in which we've been speaking of today lies in your perception, and only your perception. So reconcile it with yourself in a way that puts this to rest and silences it. A great journey will lead you to the recognition of consciousness and perfection. But until then, try to use your contemplation and recognize that if everything is perfect, which it is, every different level of energy, every different level of being here is experiencing a certain level of consciousness in the evolution of consciousness as a whole. So animals need to go through certain levels of suffering to have that experience and knowing within that form of consciousness. And as we have elevated through every substance and every being, we are now into the current state of mental suffering. And this is what we need to bring remedy to. So those are going through what they need to go through. Those that are eating it need to eat it. Consciousness is evolving beyond it. We are seeing the script change in front of ourselves. So only a matter of time before all of this stops. But you must lose your desire to change it, because that's causing you the suffering.
If we go back to that greatest teaching, if we have no suffering, we don't necessarily seek for anything. So when we have disease or physical pain, we seek for an answer to this, which elevates us beyond the level that we would be if we didn't have that suffering.
Yes, true.
So when we flip it to our greatest teachings or our biggest sufferings, then we become free from that, because we look at it not as a label as I dislike this because it's giving me these feelings, but it's teaching me something. Therefore, if you're feeling suffering from this, from the animals in these conditions, we have to free you from this, because you'll be locked in that suffering forever if you don't free your being from this.
Yeah.
And this will cause you a lot of internal problems, because a lot of these stress hormones are being released when you think of it, when you feel their trauma. A lot of beings that are spiritual say, oh, I'm an empath and I feel everyone's feelings, and I take on board that. But this is time for you to elevate and practice, put in a practice to become more than that.
Yeah, don't be an illusional empath or a delusional empath. Go beyond it. And you have the greatest sayings of all time. Sit with them and contemplate on them. What will be, will be.
And this is not being hard or cruel or
You create your own
uncaring.
reality. Do you want to create it by your suffering?
Mm.
You know?
And it would just bring extra energy to you from that. So, if you're in fear of that, or, you're suffering because of that, all of that energy that you're giving out, that attention that you're giving it,
You're resonating in violence and fear.
Will ultimately bring you to that, to try to elevate you past that. It's a teaching that we need to lift our being past.
Multi-dimensions exist here. What dimension do you fall into? What dimension have you trapped yourself within? And this is exactly what is happening at any given time. Allow yourself to be effortless and free. Don't fixate yourself on any type of indoctrination, any type of concept, and ask yourself, can you change it? And does your suffering help? Do your negative thought processes help you regarding these animals? Does it help them? Have you found yourself suffering more while identifying with these thoughts? So does it serve me to think these thoughts? Or should I rectify them and remedy them? I should accept what it is, and I should surrender this thought. And there's your freedom. And also just attune yourself to that inner perception. Who are you to go against the nature of consciousness and God, to say that something that is being experienced is wrong? Personally identifying, you will always have these preferences. But this whole motion of consciousness is an absolute perfection. Every single question is being answered within the display and the experience of the experiencer. Let it be. Yeah, that's your greatest release. Acceptance, surrender, and recognize what is, what will be. Simply. Shall we go to a few of these questions so we don't lose anyone before they leave us today? Hello, Josh. Any thoughts on social media technology and overstimulation? I find that when I sit with no mental distractions, I find the most healing, but boredom can come up. I can't live by lots of roads and cars. Does anyone ever just have enough of the constant noise? Pollution causes health, mental health, environmental, etc. Sometimes I find myself snarling at cars that go by, and the snarling isn't me, it's more spirit, if that makes sense. Freedom, this is still a question. Boredom, no, what is this? But seriously, there's never enough time in the day for contemplation, meditation, and growing foods. Well, anytime there's a negative thought pattern, there can be a contemplation. You don't really need to have time to contemplate. I think it can be done and has been done by myself or experience every single moment for several years. So it's definitely a possibility within us. What's happening here is there's been an identity created with a negative perception towards technology, social media, overstimulation, mental distractions, car noises, pollution, noises, environmental problems or issues, etc., that you should reconcile and remedy within yourself. So first of all, technology and social media. Technology and social media is an incredible thing.
This enables us to communicate with you, beautiful beings.
And without it, we would never know you. But it does good things and it does bad things. Bad things are perceived by those that is being done in a negative way, and good things are those who focus on things that have made things better for them. A label, again. There's another choice, it's another identity, and it's down to you how you create your reality. So I choose to perceive technology as a wonderful thing. And those that get led into overstimulation. What is overstimulation? Too much stimulation that causes suffering. But could the idea of overstimulation, and you believe now that you spend too much time on social media, create the negative emotion? Create this negative response because somebody has told you that you need to limit your time on social media to 30 minutes a day. Because that's one aspect of suffering. Two, if you can't sit with yourself because boredom sets in, is because the mind is consistently needing to be occupied.
Like if you ask yourself, who is bored? Who is the one that's feeling bored?
And what is happening? And the boredom isn't in this room. Where does the boredom arise from? Is there a dialogue in my head that is addicted to something that needs stimulation? So this needs to be remedied, of course. And you can put yourself through a complete environmental shift until the pattern has been created as a habit form, and then you will be alleviated over time. You can just recognize every time that you're bored, there's this desire to do something, and focus on the idea, and then change focus into this moment, and see if you fixate your attention here in this present moment, the boredom is alleviated. So it's the mind, its trick in its trap. So there needs some work, there needs some evolution here. But through everything that we spoke of today, you need to identify this within yourself, and you need to sit down and contemplate about it. Find out where it arises from. Tell yourself there's no idea of boredom. There's too much in this room that can be to experience. When you have, let's say, when you recognize the self as nothing, it's devoid of all things. It's just awareness itself. And awareness is aware of nothing. Now that nothingness that the awareness is aware of, you have the ability to experience. You could experience noise with a beautiful appreciation. You could focus on the fact that you have ears to hear. You could focus on you have eyes to see.
We do a lovely practice with little X where we like look at our hands and we say, how amazing are they to be able to grab something and pick something up without even.
And he goes, I'm walking, but my legs are just moving.
And we say we're holding hands and we can feel the energy, but we're not consciously aware of it. And it's just like you can never be bored of all of this experience in any given moment.
No.
Because it's just perfection if you observe it in that way.
Depth, as if it was a creation that was created with so much detail. Everywhere you look, it's like having a partner and you were not bored of her and now you are. This is just perception. You have the power to change it. And she's talking rubbish all the time.
Yeah.
You this is your perception. You've created a hate towards the things she says. It's an idea. Become a master of yourself. This is where we're pointing to. The beauty is in the eyes of the beholder, and it lies within you. You really have this innate power. You are so strong. You are the creator. Don't get lost in your illusions. And when you say that you're snarling at cars you by as if it was the spirit, depending on your perception of spirit, spy comes from spira, or spirit comes from spiral. This spirit could be the animator of life, which could be perceived as like the atomic energy or the torus field, as all spirals come from this. But if you identify or have the perception that the spirit is the self, it's not the self. The self is this observer, this awareness. The animation is your identity, the persona, with the ideas behind it. So deep rooted within your persona, there is this negativity built up about the environment and pollution.
It's another judgment from mind again, but it's kind of knowing that the ego's there, so it's trying to pin it on another entity. So we're bringing in, again, it's kind of like this Western box and the spiritual box. We've now got the two working against each other, and it's like, oh, if I say it's spirit, it might not be as bad as if I admit that it's the ego taking over. So it's a kind of...
But you're not necessarily, you can't identify, the difference, because spirit is devoid of all thinkingness. Self is. And self holds no judgment to anything. It has this ability to experience within itself a phenomenal reality through lucid dreaming. and then you create a perception within the identified body, mind, any way you want.
But then you can kind of talk yourself into that, because when you mention the noise, the pollution, and the causes to health and environmental issues, we can kind of put another label on that and say, well, actually, it's okay for me to feel that way or think that way, because I've now ticked all the boxes to enable me to feel that way. So it's like you're saying, yes, we are okay to feel this way. In actual fact, if you left all of that alone,
there's just nothing there.
It's not that concept of you having to deal with all this emotional baggage of you feeling sad because of the environment,
it's all mentalization, isn't it?
Yeah, it's another box that we're putting ourselves into to feel okay for feeling this way.
Let go. All of these concepts, all of these ideas, and you'll feel so free. And the mind will say, but what about pollution? You leave it alone. What about the animals? You leave it alone. What about this moment that can be experienced fully? What about...
And once that's practiced daily, just letting go. Okay, it still comes up, it still comes and goes, and that's absolutely fine, but just let it pass through. It's like the traffic. The traffic's passing through no matter whether you're happy or sad about it.
Resist it. And I mean, you live by a road. I think you said you don't live by a road, but if you do live by a road and you're resisting it every time it comes past, you won't be able to sleep because the traffic won't make me sleep. You can sit there and, on a daytime, let's just put this to an example. You're feeling a bit fizzy in your tiredness. It's a hot summer's day and noise is everywhere, and you just really comfy. You're happy. You've got no expectations that you need to fall asleep at nighttime. And all the noise in the world, you've just gone to sleep. There was no resistance there.
Just peace, blissfulness.
And you can fall asleep anywhere with any noise, but it's the resistance you hold or the trying to fall asleep which actually stops you. So trying to be spiritual. You'll never be spiritual trying to be, because you're already that which is seeking the spirit.
But that's like what Josh was saying then. It's like the force. You're trying to force something into a position or a place. And if we use our power over the force, which is one of the great books, isn't it, that David Hawkins has written.
Power versus force.
Yeah, and the force that you're trying to emphasize on this direction is just not working. So it's like, just release all that and know that you're in control and you have the power to release this and not feel the burden of suffering all the time.
It's your choice. This is your issue. If you choose to hold on to, of course, the ego loves drama. It loves emotion. It loves friction because you keep it alive.
That fire burns. And it's, all of those emotions that it thrives off of, the comfort, the judgment, the expectation. And, what we're focusing this Q&A on today is the issue.
You.
It just comes down to that.
I'm sorry to tell you.
You're not sorry.
It is you, and it always has been. And you must recognize this to reconcile this. Until you do, you are going to be full of issues. And these are your choices if you have become present of them, or should we say aware of them. If you are still unaware, take the pointings we shared today, start taking a look, become aware, and let them fall down themselves.
The practices that you put in place will just become automatic.
You see, you don't become free with practice, but the practice leads you to freedom. So you have to continually let go. And that last thing that's there, what do you have to let go of? You don't. Then you find the art of not picking up ideas.
It's that resistance again. The least resistance that's happening within the body, whether it be the mind, energetic system, where you put the energy. But it has to be a practice initially, because then it becomes automatic, and then you won't be picking up these ideas
everything will be happy, and your happiness is still gratification from the ego, but you're still walking around. Everything's a bit more joyous. Your vibration's higher. You may not have experienced the Godhead itself or God within, but your experience is nicer. And that journey of consistently having a will for truth should lead you to inner reflection and finding out that you are that which creates all things within yourself. Consciousness, the lucid dreamer. Finn, brother, 30-day fast.
32 days.
32-day fast. I lost all 5 years of my gym gains. They will pop back very quickly. But you have cleansed yourself for 32 years worth of cleansing. So well done. And, you know, this doesn't need to be done very often. Just congratulate yourself and remember what you've done for longevity. Well done. Very, very good.
Great practice.
Good to sit with you too. Music, Monster Man. Yeah, my brother. Lovely. Gina. Love to hear how we care for our teeth. So we found the best thing for our teeth is a type of mix that we create with a small amount of bicarb. Let's say 1:5 ratio of bicarb, 3:5 ratio of a coconut charcoal base, which is of course organic, and then the 1 ratio mixed with organic coconut oil, and then we just either heat it up if it's too cold in the UK for it to be liquid, and then let it reset, or we just stir it and it stays perfect. And that is what we do. I did experiment through, many times of not cleaning my teeth while eating fruit, and I never experienced any teeth issues. But now I do brush them.
What I will say with regards to any health issues, get your blood work checked and look into any deficiencies, so vitamins, mineral deficiencies, because it doesn't really come down to how you're brushing your teeth or looking after your teeth on a daily basis. It's more to do with the vitamins and mineral markers from the blood work. So if you're experiencing those kind of problems, maybe go and see, in the UK we can get it done on the NHS for free, but it is worth doing it at least once a year, I feel.
Yeah, especially if you aren't sure. And then, if you are good and you don't feel any different, maybe every 2 years. But if you are like a fruitarian, you really need to check your B12, your D3, and possibly your iron, especially, and obviously iodine as well.
Because any deficiencies will come out in the physical body. So, if you're feeling overly tired,
like Mr. Burns,
it may be the B12, D3, iodine, and iron. Thyroid issues. It can be some minerals.
And they are so hard to pull yourself out of.
Once you're at that level that you can't maintain it, that you have to bring yourself back up. It's a very difficult journey, so it is worth going for.
And it's lovely to have the idea that what we're eating is absolutely perfect, but unfortunately, like we said earlier on, commercial food is not the optimal food.
It all comes down to the soil, and unfortunately this is not the best at the moment, although I know beings are out there trying to rectify this. But at the moment, if you are using the corporations to supply you with whole foods, it is better to get checked.
And in that sense, we would say having a beautiful view from up here across many people, just get some variety. If you think of all the different types of farmers all across the world, in England, Netherlands, Spain, Portugal, you're having all these different types of soils. Certain soils are probably going to have more organic minerals than others. So if you can have a variety of foods, you're more than likely going to prevent yourself from deficiencies than if you were just focused on a few that were grown in the same place.
This brings us on to, I saw a question about supplements that we
Shoot.
recommend or take.
Okay.
I
think it's further down.
I did put a list on one of our videos or on the website, I think.
Was it related to fitness though? Gina also said, what about ladies working out, losing fat in breasts? You will have to just take that one, unfortunately.
But also, like, when you build a little bit of muscle tone around the chest area, it gives a great illusion of more of a fullness.
Also, it gives you the lift from the top end.
So working on exercises to build a bit of muscle tone, it's really difficult for women to build muscle, but natural fact, once you start lifting weights, you can really see a difference, can't you? In the shape and the
composition changes so rapidly. But just know that the way you present yourself, how balanced you are, is far more important than a man's idea on what size your breast needs to be. And this is just a concept in society. Be proud of what you are, accept what you are, and enjoy the fruits of your labor within the gym. Don't be focused on one thing, because you'll miss everything else. Sculpt a wonderful body, enjoy the power it brings you, not in power over others, but the power within your physical body to move, to lift, and the energy you'll find.
That focus, again, one more time, is that don't bring that focus and that attention to things that you're not happy with. It's, again, another label of something that you've made up in your mind about what society feels is good or bad about a physical aspect of your body. So bringing big that breasts,
people with big breasts moan, people with little breasts moan, and they're heavy, they stretch, these are all ideas. You were given what you were given, and that was for a great purpose, for you to overcome the idea behind it. Syra, we would love to know your thoughts on supplementation and if you supplement yourself. So that was the question we just came to. We for sure make sure we do B12, as we've seen far too many deficiencies there. Through the winter time, we would find a lichen-based D3, which is a vegan type of vitamin D3 with a K2 or vitamin K supplement along with it. And the reason why we have the lichen-based one is because the linolin or lanolin-based D3 is from sheep's wool that's soaked and processed in that way, so we just rather the ones off the wood bark on the tree. Also, some mushrooms are fortified or grown in conditions that create vitamin D, so that could be something to put into your diet over the winter time, which then leads us to another question I've seen. What do we have what food would you eat, or do you eat during the winter time?
Can I just touch a little bit more on supplementation?
Of course you can. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. I was just going to say about multivitamins, they're kind of worth looking into as well, like a multivitamin. And we have a video on our website about the kombu, or the seaweed. So kombu, or Irish sea moss for minerals. It's got a huge amount of minerals in, and the way that we prepare it, we've got a video out on xfamunityconsultations. And we'll put the link in the description for all of our videos on health, and supplements are available on there as well.
And there's also been a lot of things on, the marine phytoplankton, which is another type of concentrated seaweed that has actually B12 in it. So that's something that is a very good use and benefit to someone on this journey. And we met some lovely beings in our community a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking, and they were saying when they take kombu, their hair and nails started growing very rapidly, that it was very noticeable. Obviously, this is down to the mineral load within your body, so it's very good to just be cautious and prepare these things, even though it does take some time out of your day. but we highly recommend it.
And again, if you do go for blood work and you have an area highlighted that's on the lower side, then at least you know which areas you need to maybe supplement, so that you're not getting into that deficiency where you're too low and can't then pick yourself back out of that. So again, we hugely recommend blood work, and then after that, from that, we can have a look into supplementation areas that you may need, because individual is such an individual thing, because you could be in the same produce as your family, and it may be that you're at a lower end of the scale, so we can then boost it up with supplementation. And the areas that you can look into with regards to training, if you're in the gym, we mentioned this last time, the EAAs, essential amino acids.
If you feel like you can't eat enough, then there's we would recommend something like a flavorless amino acid complex that is of the essential amino acids. Creatine is something which has been given previously some ideas that it could have negative impacts on kidneys, etc. But modern day studies have brought it into light that it's good for children, for adults, for old age pensioners, and has a wide array of benefits when physical exercise is brought in. But still, you can do these things without it, and you don't need them. But sometimes people are looking for the closest thing to natural with a type of edge, and don't judge yourself if you choose to do these things just to experience what it's like, because then
again, I feel like some communities feel like they should be getting all of their nutrition from the earth, which we should.
Which we do, essentially.
It's how it's grown and what's available to us. So we need to look into that, as well as not feeling guilty or in fear of taking supplementations if it's needed.
Because for sure, when you're on this journey, that will be something that arises within you. You may feel like you're getting judged for others because you're supplementing when you shouldn't, because the earth provides bounty for us all to enjoy and to be healthy with. But I can assure you this really isn't the case. So don't restrict yourself to these ideas, because they can cause severe detrimental effects if you're long-term. And this is why a lot of vegans or fruitarians or anyone on that journey who's been whole food vegan for a while, that usually the 6-year mark is when they turn back to, not Western diets, but consuming things like meat, dairy, and eggs, because they don't feel well. So don't wait to the 6-year mark for you to not feel well and then try to remedy it. Just take these small steps, and your body's so clean, your body's so clear, it can deal with anything, any of these small things that you're putting in. But they do help, they do aid. 10% of them's absorbed, and just that will keep you on a level. We'll move on from that now, but thank you for your question. Thank you. What do you, from Freedom, what do you eat during winter time, since it's very difficult to grow anything? So at the moment I'm on a whole food plant-based journey anyway, so I would consume, especially things of a warming nature. Still have a predominantly raw in the diet, especially early on in the day, small fruits and fruits, I would say. Forget the cucumbers and tomatoes, avocados, these things are fruits. But don't ever hesitate, from having things like your squashes, sweet potatoes, your potatoes. And if you do have things like rice, then just introduce them slowly into your diet so your body can adjust, create the right microenvironment for them to be processed and digested before you bring more volume to them. And then you won't find yourself having any sort of lymphatic expressions causing you to feel flu-like symptoms. But of course, fruitarianism, if I'm guessing this is where you're coming from, is a lovely place to eat, but it is still a box that you can hold yourself into if through the winter you feel like the body's too cool to do it. Just eat as clean as you can, bless your food, have a present moment with it before you consume it, give thanks, hold grace for this incredible healing nutritious food I'm about to consume.
I think that's another part.
Love, healing, light, and strength. We love you, our dinner. That's what little X sings to our food. How often do you consume food? And would just bananas and oranges mainly alone be okay for bodybuilding? I love the fact you're creating a great physique with just fruits. It is not just fruits at this present time. Still mainly fruits, but I am having some cooked food, no processed food or anything like that. But I am cooking food, mainly because there's not enough variety of fruits here. Also due to the inability for certain fruits to actually become ripe. So it would just be bananas, maybe apples that I would be able to have. And I don't feel like that's enough diversity after, spending so long with.
And you would
so many
have
people.
to have a lot of calories from that, which is
doable.
but
you can have 8 bananas as 1,000 calories.
It's
One big
again the
coconut,
variety
1,000.
that we were speaking of with regards to the nutrients. You want a variety, and living in the UK, especially during the winter months, is very difficult to get ripe fruit that's available.
Yeah.
So again, it would cause quite a lot.
And I
of
don't
difficulty.
feel, any different because I don't judge it. Others may say you don't seem as flamboyant as you do on fruit. I was on fruit for like 3 years, and it was lovely. It was lovely. I was fasting, water fasting, and I needed that experience to truly know. But I don't judge any situation, and within me, I am still as silent and happy and joyful, even though I've lost elements of the personified idea that others need to know or have to experience what I have. So that might come through in teachings or, when you meet certain people. This is not actually, it can be perceived as a de-evolution, but I would say it's an evolution within yourself because you're letting go of concepts again. And also sitting on a whole food plant-based diet is still a wonderful diet. But just if you are doing that, you have to consume so much. You'd probably have to consume 45, 50 bananas a day and maybe 6 kilo of oranges a day to maintain around about 170 pounds, 175. And to be in excess of surplus of like 500 calories to 600 calories, you're going to gain about half a pound to a pound of muscle, maybe a month. Unless you have muscle memory like I did, then it just looks like you've gained weight very quickly. But I hope that helps, and good luck to you if you're doing that. But please look into blood work and maybe take some multivitamins because it's more than likely not enough essential nutrients in that food. The calories might be there though.
I had a few answers to my question about the full moon, so thanks for letting me know. So when the full moon's out, what they call it, lunatics come out on the lunar. And there's definitely different shifts that I feel within the energies around. But it's really interesting to journal some things that happen during the month and see if they correlate to each other each month. And I just find it quite interesting that through this journey of cleansing the mind, body, soul, or spirit, you can really identify certain shifts that are happening with regards to the energies in the universe, multiverse within us. And I just feel hugely connected to all you guys out there that are on this journey with us, and it's just wonderful.
Yeah, we love seeing all you. Every time we're here, it's such a pleasure to spend this time around so many wonderful beings on a journey such as ourselves. It's something that's very challenging to most people, and to be able to do it without effort is just an incredible thing. So we love you all so very much. See Brother Justin Carpenter. Hi, Brother Josh and Sister Michelle. Sending you love. Sending you much love back, brother. It's great to see you here. Hope you're well. And life is continually blessing you. Hi, Josh and Michelle. Is the sacred secretion of chrism moving full cycle? What happens when you use the virtues? Is this a concept of reality? Yeah, so the sacred secretion or the sacred secret of this energy system within ourselves is blocked by persona, and the persona is full of illusions that create conflict, friction within ourselves. So the virtues are an incredible tool to alleviate yourself from friction against your internal mind. And the virtues do is they attune you to a higher vibration. So you figure out why you're impatient. So patience is a virtue. So you sit there every time you feel impatient in nature to do something other than what is here. There's a time for inner contemplation, reflection, and using virtues to your advantage here, which will let you essentially remove this thought form, this demon, and correct it. And then you have things like kindness, you have charity, and charity can be, deceptive because the persona, it will like to give charity when others note the charity that has been done. So the idea of becoming one who can give anonymously without the gratification that comes with giving.
Because that's another trap, isn't it, for the virtues? Because it can be equally as fake, because sometimes you feel like you have to uphold the kindness and put on a persona to be that being. So it's not in balance still. It's completely the opposite way. So although we're not living in that sinful behavior, we're faking the behavior. And that saying of fake it until you make it is kind of like untrue as well to the being that's inside, because you're
It's untrue to self,
act.
isn't it?
Yeah, it's an act rather than a natural way of being.
So you master the virtues, you're alleviating thought forms, you're removing illusions, you're creating less friction, less suffering. Through the less suffering and friction, you're actually elevating your vibration, becoming more and more free. As that dropped, you start to bring this energy to a higher frequency within yourself. So the Kundalini energy is more free flowing. If someone's looking for a lucid Kundalini experience through, force, this can be done through Kundalini yoga and breathwork, etc. But this is not enlightenment in any way, shape, or form. That is just something physical. And of course, learning the art of lucidity within yourself creates something so more profound than just a Kundalini experience. So when you get yourself to the sixth chakra here, there's only one place to go, and it's to absolutely surrender every concept that you have. And this is why it's sectioned off into the idea that you're jumping into the abyss. The abyss is devoid and free. It's a void that has nothing in it. So you learn the art of not picking up, becoming free and judgmentless. Then your Kundalini energy is free flowing, and you are not blocked by physicality or the persona. And you have elevated, which is El, God, Eve, even, ated. 8 is innate. It is the reciprocation of this energy within yourself, represented by the number 8. This is what true climate change is within ourselves. And you have activated it. And you have bliss, love, emanating from your very being. I hope that helps and that answers the question you were looking for. So it is a concept, but it is a reality. And the only thing that is free is the immaculate conception, free from any concept and ideas. Right. I think we have answered the questions of today. Yeah, thank you all. So can I change everything about my life just by changing my thinking. There you go, sister. That is exactly
the ultimate truth.
And then once you change the way you think, you let go of all thinking until you choose to think. You consciously think, and then that is your choice of creation. Otherwise, you're bound to the four walls of the persona with its judgments, delusions, illusions, warped perception, and this persistent noise that exists inside your awareness as a mentalization. So in saying that, we thank you. We keep this to just a bit smaller or shorter than an hour and a half, so others may sit through this. And thank you all for joining us. Continue to elevate yourself. If you need to practice, continue to focus on the true practice. Work on your contemplation. Bring solutions. Bring remedy by recognizing through resolution. You will recognize that all issues are you. There has never been a problem outside of yourself. It was always you. Have a beautiful, strong. We love you. Have gratitude for each and every one of you.
Thanks, beautiful family. Happy full moon.
And we'll see you again very soon.
Take care, beautiful
Infinite
family.
love and light to each and every one of you. God bless you. Goodbye.